Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose to Carolina Hurricanes 3-2 in overtime in a game that they led going into the third period. Um, and look, it's kind of same old for the Rangers. In the way that they lose these games, you know, there were some streaks or some positive trends that don't really come up here where the Rangers, when they score first, they were 15-2, which there's something to that, but I think there's also some luck involved there. So now they're 15-1. Um, Even though it didn't always feel good, I think on a results basis, I think when they led after two periods, they typically had a pretty, as you should, but I think a pretty strong record. Now, again, you get that overtime loss. Um, it's not a loss to feel good about. Like if the Rangers were having a decent season, okay, and you take a point in Carolina, forgetting about the fact that you lost the game in the third period, it's one that I think you can feel all right about. But given where the Rangers are, just desperate for points, we've reached the halfway point, 41 games, and the Rangers have 43 points. So if you prorate that, times it by 86 points, which to me, it's not, that's not going to get you in the playoffs. Not in these, not usually ever, and certainly not in the Eastern Conference. In the West, it could, with the way the Western Conference looks. But that's not, a conversation that we're going to have here. I think at most they're going to end up with 86 points. I think if everything broke right, which says a lot about how I feel about them because really they weren't that good. Um, they're a very, very mediocre team. That's just what it is. And look, outshot 34-19 to me, very typical. Especially in a game against Carolina and Carolina, look, to me, nothing's changed for them. I mean, yeah, there's some kind of players out, new players in, but to me, like very good regular season team, one of the best teams in the Metropolitan Division, and in the Eastern Conference as well. Come playoff time, I don't believe that Carolina is all of a sudden going to become. Look, I think if they make the conference final, which they tend to do a decent amount, except when they face the Rangers, I would venture to guess, even though, maybe some of like let's say the Panthers, maybe they're not quite the way they've been. Obviously, you lose Barkov and some other things as well there. But yeah, this isn't about Carolina, but I just wanted to say, like, as much as I want to give them credit for the consistent regular season success they have, they are nothing special. My point there is like, yeah, like Rangers won in Carolina in November and they couldn't do it this time. And look, like there's no Seth Jarvis in this lineup. There's no Jacob Slavin. Shane Gostisbehere didn't play in this game. I may be forgetting some other big ones, so apologies for that. But again, like this is not a full strength Carolina team. And Brandon Bussey, who really is a journeyman goalie, he's been good for Carolina. Don't get me wrong, and they needed him with Freddie Anderson having a disastrous season and Kochetkov now being out for the season. Bussey's been their guy, and he's been pretty good, but he wasn't tested, barely tested by the Rangers. They don't score goals. There's no fucking talent on this team. They're mostly a hardworking bunch, but even that gets questioned deservedly so at times. And you get what you get. And obviously, it doesn't help when Adam Fox again was out. I think he'll be back soon, but that, even though their record wasn't that much different with him in and out of the line, it's killed them. As much as JT Miller has not had a good season, him being out hurts as well. For the Rangers, things have to go exactly right for them to have success. Um, you know, and that's just what it is. And I think that we're hitting a point soon where decisions are going to have to be made. And I really want a lot of the players traded off this team. Um, I don't know how successful that will be, but I'd like for that to be the case. Um, let's, I guess, start in kind of going over some player evaluations here. We are at the halfway point, kind of a good time to do it, even though it doesn't feel that way, right? Obviously, because you're going to have that, the break, even though it's not at all, in some ways, the halfway break is almost going to feel like the Olympic break, but you're going to be well more, I don't know what, at the 2/3 mark there, maybe a little shy of that, but somewhere there. But Brett Berard was sent down, and so Vakanainen was a healthy scratch again, which has been the case for the most part. And he'll continue to kind of be in that role. Even when Fox comes back, I would expect him to send Morrow down and just keep Vakanainen as the scratch. Again, he has become a very useless part of this team. Look, another contract extension made that just wasn't a good one by Chris Drury last year. Look, I wasn't overly critical of it at the time, but Bogdan has just been really bad this year. Brennan Othman, a healthy scratch, and I was kind of waiting for that to happen. Look, if he's only going to play 5 minutes a night anyway, you may as well scratch him, right? Because look, everything being equal, I would like to see younger players play, but if you're going to play him 7 shifts a night, then sure, have him sit. Um, Igor Shesterkin was very good. And, it hasn't been an amazing season for Igor, but it's been a pretty good one for him. Been a little inconsistent, but, 9-10 save percentage, 2.51 goals against average. Like, I'd say it's been more good than bad, while also acknowledging that, look, like there were some games where if he was a little bit better, the result could have been different. If you want to have a problem with the contract, that's fine. Like that's a fine point. But just in terms of pure quality players in the sea, Igor Shesterkin, and I know it's a low bar, he is one of your best players on the team. Unfortunately, with the way the Rangers are, it doesn't really always make a difference. Defensively, Braden Schneider, I mean, he played over 25 minutes. Look, I cannot wait till he moves back down on that to the third pair, or just not with Gavrikov. Losing the Gavrikov-Fox pairing is huge. Yeah, look, like in the sense of kind of hoping that the Rangers, and we may get there at some point for me, and fans may already be there in the sense of like just trying to lose games and making it clear that they're sellers and having a better lottery potential position. Look, fine. But in the sense of trying to win games and be successful, Braden Schneider, playing as much as he does, is not good. The guy has really no offensive abilities. It's all, it's his size and it's his handedness being a right-handed shot. Like there's attributes that we always go back to, but that's all it is. And even that to me, it is overrated on the part of Braden Schneider. We'll talk about him, this is more of a general thoughts section here, and then we'll talk about the specifics of the game. But Braden Schneider does play a role negatively for sure in this game. And he is a guy for me that if the trade is right, do it. Seriously, because I mean, as it is, look at the right side. Fox and Borgen are under contract for, like another 4 years or so, right? Like somewhere in that range. So Braden Schneider, so what? He's basically going to be, because look, the idea of moving him to his offside and being in the top 4, that's not ideal. And I don't even want that. There was a time when I'd be open to that. I don't want that. So him as a third pairing guy, like I just don't even think from just a money standpoint, it's not worth it. And so I think that, trade him now, or at least in the offseason. Other than that, Scott Morrow Scott Morrow against his former team. I think it was his first game against, or at least his first game in Carolina. Because Fox was healthy the last time around. So, Scott Morrow, look, I don't have that much high hopes for Scott Morrow. I mean, he's getting a lot of valuable, ice time, and they took him off the number 1 power play unit, which ends up actually working out, where Vlad Gavrikov ends up being on there, and Gavrikov, one of the few bright spots this season, no question about it. But yeah, Morrow, he is what he is. Matthew Robertson played a lot, and I think that Robertson has exceeded expectations. But look, he takes a big penalty in overtime. It seemed as if Carson Soucy lost some playing time where he saw a lot of Robertson Borgen. So yeah, those are, I guess, the defensive thoughts. And with the forwards, I mean, that's really where more of the problem lies. Although again, with the defense, there's just not a whole lot of offense at all, especially with Fox out. Let's start from the top. That first line, it's not a first line. Everything's misplaced. That is really ideally more of a second line. And even there's questions, but I'll say that it's fine. It's a second line. Panarin, Zibanejad, Lafreniere. Lafreniere sucks. I mean, Lafreniere, I would try to trade him now before it gets even worse. And I know you're selling him low in theory, but it's like, I don't have hopes for it. I mean, like, I know we've seen it before. We've seen flashes, but at this point, I'm so done with him. And I would say in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say I was a Lafreniere defender, but I was really hoping for the longest time. And it seemed like maybe in 24, he turned a corner. And yeah, I mean, his condition seems like it's bad. He's always huffing and puffing. He's a total defensive liability. Turns the puck over all the time. He can't stay on his skates. It's brutal. And Mika Zibanejad, like, look, he is at best, a second line center who really does a lot of his damage on the power play when it's right. And give him credit for being a penalty kill guy and this and that. Like, there's value to Zibanejad, but he's nowhere near the player he used to be. And Panarin's Panarin, right? There's nothing new there. And Panarin's likely to be traded. Like, that's just that. I would be shocked if Panarin is not traded by the deadline. Let's go to the second line, which should be a third line. It's not a close second line. Vincent Trocheck, man, he has been fucking garbage. He really, really has been. Um, he looked good when he first came back, but that was short-lived. I mean, just watching Vincent Trocheck, and he is losing faceoffs. I said it, I went to the Island game, I noticed it there, and then in this game, key faceoff after key faceoff. I don't know if his overall face percentages back this up, but it has to be. He used to be so good on faceoffs. It has to be worse than that, right? It still might be good, but it has to be worse than that. I mean, losing it clean. I know that he's not playing with the best of line mates, right? Like a lot of the times, he's playing with Panarin. That's not the case right now. He's playing in this game with Cooley and Perreault. But still, Trocheck, like, again, maybe he's not flying under the radar anymore, but I understand that his theoretical style of play is one that Mike Sullivan and company would want, and I know he's kind of attached to the hip with JT Miller. But if it were me, I would be very open in the right deal, in the right trade, to trading Vincent Trocheck. I think that there's value to be had there if someone is willing to be okay with the amount of years left. That's the one thing. The cap hit isn't exorbitant. It's just, are you willing to kind of stick with Trocheck? And he's the guy that probably won't age well with his style, with once was his style of play. Will Cooley is strictly a third liner. Like, that is, he is not a top six player. Just what it is. He's a third line player. Gabe Perreault, I hope that one day he'll be decent, but at this point, I think there's more kind of hoping that he'll do well out of necessity. Ideally, he'd be in Hartford. Noah Laba, I think I like what he brings, but there's not a whole lot of offensive skill right now. Like, Noah Laba to me, for third line offensive productivity, you're not really getting that. And look, he would be someone that I would qualify in a very small category as a positive, like as far as expectation. But let's just be honest, Laba doesn't have a lot of offensive skill. On his wings were Sherry and Radish. I mean, come on, like those are fringe, healthy scratch types. Those are, 11, 12, 13, 14 forward type players that are in your top nine. And then you got Carrick centering Brodzinski and Rempe. And look, that line scored in this game. I can live with that line, but it's nothing. Like, Rempe, when he's right, can be really effective. I think Sam Carrick, he's cooled down a little bit. I think that, like, the Edstrom Carrick Rempe line, if you can get that back together, could be really effective. Johnny Brodzinski, he ends up, he took a penalty in this game, but he scored in this game. We know what he is. He's versatile and whatever. I'm not going to have a huge opinion on Johnny Brodzinski, but yeah, like, this is just it's not a very good team that's currently constructed. And them getting out of it, I think, is going to be difficult. I think you have to be seller. I think you have to do as much as you can to get as much as you can for Panarin, Soucy, right? The two of your biggest unrestricted free agents, and try to get creative around that. And I'm talking trading a Lafreniere, trading a Braden Schneider. Now, I know you can't trade everyone, right? I totally get that. But for the right deal, I'm really considering a lot of different things. Certain people are just on trade. Like, let me use the manager, and that's just not going to happen based on his contract situation and everything else. It's just simply not going to happen. Same thing with JT Miller, right? So I think Trocheck is one that may be somewhat realistic among players that you wouldn't expect to be traded. Anyway, let's discuss this game. But yeah, just wanted to kind of get that out kind of at the halfway point of the season here. Rangers get off to a pretty fast start. And the problem is 2-on-1, Will Cooley is stopped. Then you have a breakaway type situation for Laba, and he's slashed. He draws a penalty. Nikishin slashes him. Laba would miss a little bit of time. Came back probably with about 5 minutes left in the first period. So it did cost him a little bit, but he seemed somewhat no worse for wear, but took a nice whack to draw the power play. So Rangers, again, they had a good start, but that's a situation where with a little bit more skill, a little bit more goal scoring ability, you might have scored. But they actually do score, make it 1-0. It's Vladislav Gavrikov with his 7th goal of the season, which is a career high in a single season for Gavrikov, which is pretty incredible. I mean, we're halfway through the season. I'll tell you this, he won't get 14 goals, but just the fact that like he may get double digits, for a guy that already provides really good defense in year one of the 7-year deal, it's been a good one. So Gavrikov for Panarin and Trocheck at 139. So Gavrikov, that was a nice one timer too. Like the goals that he scored as well have been impressive. They haven't been like these lucky random goals. Like there's a good shot. Having that left defenseman with actually works. And I know Fox will be back soon, but you know what? I don't love Gavrikov on there for the only reason is because he plays so much as it is. But you know what? With Fox soon to be back, fuck it. For however long that is, let it be Gavrikov. Also of note, Lafreniere was on the power play here, not Cooley. They've switched that up at times. If they want a net front presence, Cooley. If they want to have a different look, Lafreniere. But again, Lafreniere didn't really make much of an impact on the goal. It's Gavrikov, makes it 1-0. From there, first period, Carolina got better as the period kind of went on, but in a lot of ways, it was the penalties that hurt the Rangers. And as much as Carolina controlled territorial play in this game, it was the Rangers' penalties that they took. I mean, one a 5-on-3, one a 4-on-3. So as much as I can't kill the penalty kill itself, because the fact of the matter is just, I mean, when you only have 3 men on the ice, you're in a tough spot. And so the penalties were as follows. Johnny Brodzinski trips Nikolai Ehlers at 14:53. It's a bad penalty by Brodzinski. It's just, it's needless in the offensive zone. Can't do that. And then 20 seconds later, Braden Schneider delay a game penalty. And I want to say it might have been Trocheck who originally couldn't clear it. I don't know for 100% sure, but I think it might have been. And again, it goes back to Trocheck not winning faceoffs, big faceoffs at that. And Braden Schneider backhands it out into the crowd. You can't do that. You cannot do that. And so it's 5-on-3. And very quickly thereafter, they score. Sebastian Aho, 14th goal of the season from Nikishin and Ehlers. And I'm not sure if Igor saw it. If he did see it, then maybe there's criticism to be had. I don't think he saw it. I think Svechnikov provides a screen. And, it's a good enough shot by Aho with, in a good position, tie the game up at 1. We go to the second period, and 46 seconds in, Stankoven trips Taylor Radish. Rangers don't score on that power play. Morrow, by the way, goes to the second unit. But yeah, I thought for this period, Carolina was the better one to start, but the Rangers really improved for sure as the second period kind of went on. And at the 13-minute mark, Johnny Brodzinski scores his 4th goal of the season from Carrick and Robertson, but gives Matt Rempe a lot of credit. Rempe is able to get the puck, carry it into the Carolina zone, curls back, goes to Robertson at the point. Robertson takes a quick shot off of the stick of Carrick, and it goes to an open Brodzinski who buries it right away. You know what was great about that whole thing? It was quick and simple. Too many times the defensemen at the point for the Rangers take their time. Robertson did a good job of just getting it off, Carrick being in the right position to make a little bit of a deflection, and Brodzinski is able to bury it pretty harmlessly and easily to make it 2-1 Rangers. They would take a penalty soon after that, where actually, was it Robertson that got away with one? Someone got away with the penalty, but then Borgen, they called for tripping right after that. At 13:54, Borgen trips Kotkaniemi, with Rangers kill off that power play, and we go to the third period up 2-1, which doesn't have you feeling great in this setup at Carolina. Like, it doesn't. But it's still too bad that the Rangers, they found a way to fuck it up. Not to the point where they lost to regulation, but again, I'm of the mindset now, Rangers, if you're not getting 2 points, then that's not moving any sort of needles for me at all. So third period we go, and it was never a good period with the Rangers, but they were limiting Carolina in terms of true good chances. It just sucks the Rangers never really had much of a push. You could argue they were sitting back, but I could also say, look, shots on goal were like 2-1 Rangers, like about, 8 minutes into the period. But at 9:11, Jordan Martin, who scores his 6th goal of the season, assisted by Chatfield and former Ranger Keandre Miller, to tie it up at 2. And what kills me is Braden Schneider in the offensive zone. A rare situation when the Rangers had the puck in the offensive zone. He is on it. I mean, there was a play to be had there. Not only does he not make the play or even make a simple pass, he loses the puck entirely, and it changes the whole course of the situation. And I mean, there were failed clearing opportunities, but I think they did eventually get it out as well. Like Igor, they did. Like Igor tries to clear it, he doesn't, but they get it out. And to me, it's really like Strider and Lafreniere to the right of Igor, who really struggled to gain possession, go a little bit out of position, and it leads to an open Chatfield. So yeah, the way to describe this again, like it was really, Miller gets the puck at the left point, Chatfield on the right side. He shoots, Igor makes the save, but it goes off of Martinook's skate and in. I think he was battling with Gavrikov in front. So again, a fortunate goal, but you make your luck sometimes. And Braden Schneider to me is the biggest culprit, but Alexis Lafreniere as well. A terrible job on a line in this advantage line that if it's not scoring, it's a defensive liability when Panarin and Lafreniere are your wingers. And so it ties it up at 2. Carolina had more chances. I mean, they could have won regulation, but Igor made some good saves. And ultimately, we go to overtime. The Rangers, it was not a well-played overtime. And they start out with Trocheck thinking that he'll win a faceoff. Now, he does actually on this one on 3-on-3, but then he loses the puck. I don't know what he was thinking about. He goes into the Carolina zone behind the net. And, Vinny, did you forget it's 3-on-3? Why are you going behind the net trying to basically make a board battle? That's the situation where you're supposed to peel back and just keep the fucking puck. Now, they do regain the puck at one point, but then Mika Zibanejad, who's been terrible in the overtimes this season, tries to force a pass to Panarin that had no fucking chance. And eventually, Carolina has the possession, and Matthew Robertson trips Taylor Hall at 3:01. Just frustrating. Because that wasn't, he didn't have to do that. Like, it wasn't egregious on Robertson's part, but I think we've seen before. I wish I could backtrack to the specific game, but I think Matthew Robertson has recently been victim of some pretty key late penalties. If memory serves me correct. So now it is a 1 minute and 59 second power play for Carolina 4-on-3. And the shame of it all is they almost survived it. And I think if you get to the shootout, the Rangers would have certainly had a chance, right? With Igor and net, with the Rangers 2-0 in the shootout. Now, Carolina's been pretty good in the shootout as well. I'm not saying they would have definitely won, but you were close to a real chance to just get that second point and to keep that, first goal record in a good place when you score first and leading after 2. Even if it wasn't deserved, it would have at least been nice to say, hey, 16-2 when you score first, which also means that the Rangers are horrible. They don't score first, but I digress. But too much reliance on me for Vincent Trocheck. Is Zibanejad that much worse of an option? Rangers called the timeout as well when there was a stoppage, which I like it in the sense of getting Gavrikov back out there, but where was I would have had Gavrikov and Borgen. They went Gavrikov and Schneider. I don't understand that because we've seen Gavrikov and Borgen before in those penalty kill situations. And what was a big, big fuck up by Braden Schneider, and I said it when it happened, he clears the puck. And at this point, there's probably 30 to 40 seconds left in the overtime, but he clears it right to the Carolina goalie. If he puts that in the corner, they have to reset, and the whole thing could have been completely different. I know if you're Schneider, you're in a little bit of rush mode, but he had time. He did, but it's another example of Braden Schneider. Look, I like the kid. It's nothing against him personally, but it's just, he has not developed the way that you would have wanted him to. You knew that offense was ever his calling card, but I don't know. That was really frustrating, and they never survived it. And Schneider, to me, he goes out of position. As this is all happening, I'm saying, watch Jason Blake's son, watch Jackson Blake in front. And what happens? Jackson Blake scores on a tip-in with 13 seconds left, his 12th goal of the season from Aho and Ehlers to win the game. That's a bad job by Braden Schneider, to me. And maybe someone else is at fault there. Maybe that's where they wanted to be positionally, but Schneider, it's an easy play. I don't know. Schneider needed to sit back. And it's just simple. Aho just kind of puts it in the direction of Blake, and nothing Igor could do about it, and Carolina wins 3-2. So it's not even that this game, look, the Rangers have had so many shutouts and horrible losses. It's a culmination of things for me. The 1 point just bothers me. In a lot of ways, can we just give the point back? What is it going to do? It's just going to kind of delay the inevitable is really, to me, all it does. So now the Rangers will head back to Washington in a game I don't feel good about at all. to be honest with you. So, and I'll give you a few reasons why. And the Rangers have surprised me this year. Well, again, they'll get the random win. But the reason I don't like this Washington game, A, the Rangers literally just won in Washington like a week ago. B, Washington's coming off of a loss to Florida and just hasn't been that great lately anyway. Which on the one hand you can look at as a good thing, but the other thing as well, the Rangers are going to be looking ahead to that Winter Classic. Now, does Adam Fox return? Maybe. Something tells me that he makes the return back on the Winter Classic. I mean, he's very close. It feels like it's going to happen any game now. And so that could change my opinion slightly, but even he might be rusty coming back for the first time in, over, about a month or so. But yeah, I don't feel good about this Rangers Capitals game for the reasons I just laid out. But we'll see what happens. And then again, it's the Winter Classic. And then after that, for me, I'm gonna, have to and again, it's not about me, but as far as whether I want this team to win games or not, honestly, I've been rooting for them. I've come very close at certain points to not, but I've stuck with them. Just because again, it's not fun to root against your team. And also the NHL, it is a lottery system, to be fair. Right? Look at how the Islanders got Matthew Schaefer. Like weird things can happen, and so you never even know, right? But still, like the Chris Drury and company, the decision makers, it needs to be made extremely and abundantly clear that this is a team that should be totally sellers. And so I don't want any false hopes or them kind of hang around. It's more of that than draft positioning. Like that's part of it for sure. But it's about making the right decisions. And to me, even if it means the Rangers not being very good the next couple of years, I think it's for the best. Because if you try to drag this thing out, I really think the Rangers could be in trouble for a long, long time. So Rangers lose to Carolina. They blow a third period lead. They lose in overtime at the end of it. Couldn't kill off the penalty. Carolina gets a 5-on-3 goal, a 4-on-3 goal. And, Rangers can't seal the deal. And they will continue their road trip. They will go to Washington for a Wednesday New Year's Eve matinee game before heading down to Florida for the Winter Classic.